Greetings and blessings in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. It's October 5th, 2020. I'm Bill Wright. This is War in Heaven, a total timeline tapestry. It's maybe my final, I don't know what I would add to this series beyond this, as we're in the fall festivals of 2020. It's been quite a journey since early 2017 when I started producing these. And we've had a lot of sequential symmetries that have happened, continuing to point forward and forward and forward to where we are now. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this timeline, and we'll back up for a moment and just remember that kind of one of the premises of this whole eschatology, this whole belief in the inherent accuracy and the principles of the idea that scriptures, ancient writings were divinely inspired, those of the Judeo-Christian collection, because of many reasons which are too massive to go into building up your understanding and belief in, but this may add to it. That's a huge life undertaking that comes out of a quest of the heart for answers and knowledge and understanding, which will lead you to that part of the journey to validate once and for all for yourself where that stands, where the validity, the usefulness, the credibility, the integrity of the revealed revelations, both in the stars and the heavens, as well as in the leather trails that were left down here for us to connect the awe of our very existence that should occupy the center of our heart, the throne room of our heart, the quest to understand and to solve that huge, screaming puzzle, that mystery of why we're here, and why is there evil, and how can something so miraculous as our human existence go so unnoticed while we chase the treasures of our short, flowering to fading existence. Okay. I think what I'm going to show you is jump right into it. I'm going to leave you a link at the end of this. And yeah, here's what I want to do. Use this. So this video is how much more could we want? How much more could we possibly want to focus our understanding and to peak our believing in the wonder of our Maker? And it says in the scripture that it's the glory of Elohim to conceal a thing, but as the honor of kings to search them out. Well, this is a lot of searching out that many eschatologists and watchers have studied for a long time. And I don't want to take credit for anything. It's not about that, but I do want to set this forth. I'm going to leave a link also in the bottom of this to earlier videos that will help set what happened back here. We've been over the Revelation 12 signs so many times. I'm not going to go over it again, but the most important thing is there was an 84-day time period that encapsulated the Revelation 12 sign that began with August 21st of 2017 and ended up with November the 12th, 13th of 2017, 84 days, as in 84 months, as in 7 years. When you really focused on the amazement of that sign, it called out that maybe we should watch for another 84-day episode. Well, there is another 84-day episode, and it began on July 20th of this year on Pentecost, and it ends on October the 10th, coming up here in 5 days. There's an 84-day time period right there, that little golden and red bar right there, 84 days. Backing up a little bit, April 12th began the Feast of Unleavened Bread and a 50-day count to the barley harvest. And then in the middle of that was the new moon ascension, 40 days from that resurrection date. But then 50 days later was the second count, which is the second harvest for the wheat, which gets you into the Feast of Pentecost, the true Feast of Pentecost, which was also on a new moon. And we thought that was a high watch date. But it was a high watch date. It was significant. All the things that have been happening on the ground, like the peace deal, dividing Jerusalem, breaking the everlasting covenant. Yes, some people say, and it may be true, that Jerusalem's been divided many times, and the current dividing under this peace agreement may be, maybe in retrospect and hindsight later, proven to be nothing more than just another meaningless division. However, we've not had the spectacle of the entire world and growing number of nations, maybe 7, maybe 10 Mideastern countries that come behind this before it is kind of finalized in prophecy. So at any rate, lots happening on the ground, lots happening with the virus, lots happening with the vaccine, lots happening with technology. Those all things all fit together in here. So as we looked forward, we found that from this July 20 new moon, and we counted forward 1,335 plus 1,290 days, which are both prophetic dates, which should be said in this order. Because happy is he that comes to the 1,335, and the 1,290 is the wrapping up of things, of the prophecy in Daniel. And that took us to September 24th, 25th of 2027, which is Shemini Atzeret, the last great day of the last great feast, the last great day of the fall festivals every year. If you know, there's spring festivals and then there's fall festivals. The spring festivals have all been double fulfilled. The fall festivals have not. So as the spring festivals had hugely prophetic fulfillments and meaningful fulfillments, so likely is it that perhaps the fall festivals will also be appointed times. That's what they are. They're appointed times for the fulfillment of God's appointed events. Just as the day of Passover was the Passover lamb was sacrificed. On the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Messiah was risen from the dead. On the Feast of Pentecost, the Holy Spirit came, and so on and so forth. So what we've had happen here during this 1335 days is quite amazing. It's quite a spectacle. We, of course, had to be watching for the September 18th Feast of Trumpets, Rosh Hashanah, the first day of the first month of the year on the Jewish secular calendar, when kings start their reign. Nothing happened. And then 10 days later, the 28th, was Yom Kippur. Nothing happened. And then 5 days later was October the 2nd. And there was a very high watch day because there was also on that day a Jupiter-Venus conjunction. Regulus and Venus conjunction on October the 2nd, which was also, interestingly, there was 75 days, nothing biblical about 75, but the 75 is the 1335 from 1260. If you add 75 to 1260, you get 1335. So it was an interesting flash because, okay, that's going to also then connect possibly to another day count. 75 plus 1260 is 1335, right? Yeah. So from at any rate, let me skip past that. But then we came to, and by the way, we just passed this date. Nothing happened, and I thought it was a high watch date for a number of reasons, because it's also from 2,520 days, 2520 is to this date right here. And that day is from October the 2nd, Sukkot, is 84 months or 7 years to August 27th of 27. Well, what is that day? That day is the 25th of Elul. The 25th of Elul is when the temple wall was finally finished and was rebuilt. God's been trying to rebuild this temple wall, not for some building, but because he is in the process of redeeming humanity from its fallen state, our broken genetics. It's kind of important. There's about 8 billion people that have lived and died, and they're dead in the dust, and they're gone forever. And there's about 8 billion left on the planet. And they're all destined, you, me, most important ones, right? You're going to die. And that's not the plan. And there's a reason that it happened. And it's not because so we can evolve and become ascended and only have our last time on this earth in this body. You can ascribe to that, but it's not as nearly coherent and attractive and intellectually appealing and answers the totality of all the great questions, as well as this messianic, scriptural, prophetic paradigm does. At any rate, there were 22,520 days, 7 years to that date. So that was a big watch date. In the big overview of things, in watching these end times, these eschatologies, this eschatology study, we come to realize that, we want to understand things, and we want there to be a cut, crisp 7 years. There's 7 years in the last 7 years, and there's got to only be 7 years, and there's got to be a rapture before the 7. No, there's a mid rapture. No, there's no rapture. No, it's at the end. At any rate, in studying this, you begin to realize that some of these things are that the unfolding of the events in prophecy that includes certainly 7 years, and some people like Ministry Revealed on the Facebook, their website, Ministry Revealed, they believe in 14 years or 14 plus 6, which is 20. And I study that and I find it interesting. Another fellow points out that there's the Messiah was cut off in the middle of the 7th year of the first 3.5 years. He was cut off in the midst of the last 7, and that there's only 3.5 years left, and points to a 3.5 year tribulation, perhaps this period here. But nonetheless, in looking at all these things and trying to understand what we do know, we do find this symmetry. And that's a remarkable thing. I'm going to point it out because I've never seen one that had this many actual high watch, high festival days in it. But at any rate, we started with Sukkot here, which is the Feast of Tabernacles. And some people say that that's actually the day that Christ was born, not September 11th, 3 BC. which is that's the other that's September 11th, 3 BC is a huge high watch date in history. I'm going to talk to you about that for a second here, I think. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, I want to talk to you about that for a second. The September 11th, 3 BC, you know, it had a astronomical event. Moon in her hair, sun at her feet. Didn't have the crown of 12 stars, and it had a time. But it may be that we'll know. We'll be able to ask and confirm when we're in the presence of when we know, even as we're known, right? But there's another discipline that says that it's actually in 4 BC on the Feast of Tabernacles, because 8 days later is Shemini Atzeret, and that's the day of circumcision. And Christ was circumcised on the 8th day. How fitting that would be. And then you come around to September 11th, 3 BC, when the Magi found their way with the rising star of Jupiter in the rising, standing straight overhead over Bethlehem. And as the prophecy, as the Gospels set forth. So that's one of the two scenarios. And that's a good way to approach, I believe, our understanding of eschatology too, is that, you know, what do we really know? You know, we all want to know. I got the answer, right? I got the right. And we can't allow our ego to do that. But we're students, right? So we learn bring opinions and we sort through them to try to find the best answers. So if Sukkot, October the 2nd, was the birthday, and if the Shemini Atzeret, October the 10th, 11th, this year is the day of the circumcision, and it's the last great day of the last great feast of the fall festivals. And it's the last trump on the last great day of the last great feast of the fall festivals. And it's a day of the circumcision, the separating out, the marking, the possession, the commitment. And it's in the fall festivals, which is all about harvests. Spring's about planting, falls are about harvests, starting with Feast of Pentecost, right? The wheat harvest, the barley harvest 50 days before that. 84 days after that is October the 10th, 84 days, just like we had 84 days to get from the Great American Eclipse of August 21st of 2017 to Shemini Atzeret of that year, the end when Jupiter and Venus met in the throne room, symbolizing so beautifully, poetically, the reunion of the body and the head in the throne room, symbolizing the rapture in that 84-day time capsule. So this 84-day time capsule is powerful and interesting here, again, pointing again to Shemini Atzeret. We have these prophetic days, prophetic timelines. There's another prophetic timeline of 2,300 days. And there are 2,300 days from Pentecost of 21, May 18th to 21, to September 3rd, trumpets, 2 great high watch, high festival days, marking off the beginning and end of that day count. And that day count is Pentecost. The temple is that's when the temple is cleansed on the end of the 2,300 days. That's the prophecy. And it just turns out there's nothing prophetic about 220 days, but it does match that if you add the 200, if you consider the fact that there are 1260 and 1260, we know there's 1260 from this point to the day of the Feast of Trumpets in 2027. And there's 1260 from here to Pentecost on next year. So Pentecost becomes another high watch date. Excuse me, Pentecost. This isn't Pentecost. This is Pentecost right here. Right here. May 18th to 21. This is where we're at right now. We're coming into this day, October the 10th, 11th, Shemini Atzeret, the beginning of a pure 7-year, 84-month biblical calendar, 84 30-day months is 2,520 days, which is broken into two 1260s. Oh, well, there's something in the middle of that. Well, there must be something in the middle. What's in the middle? Is it Easter? Is it Pentecost? No, what is it? It is, I'll show you what it is. It is, show you. Oh, here we go here. It is this. It is on March the 22nd of 2024. That's the midpoint of the 7 years. You have Aquarius. Now, Aquarius is the most misunderstood and completely reversed, traditionally taught constellations in the sky. This is the dawning of the age of, right? No, it's not. All of these star names we get our meanings of these 12 major constellations and their 3 deacons each, or 36 deacons total, for a total of 48 grand total of major constellations, scriptural constellations in the sky. And they all get their meaning from their star names, not from astrology, not from the Greeks and Romans of hundreds and hundreds of years later, but from 3000 BC, from 3500 BC. When it was given to Adam and Noah and Seth and passed on to the generations. And every language in ancient tongues have the same meanings. The meanings of Aquarius are about the pouring, not of blessings, but the pouring of wrath and judgment. Just as you could think of the imagery in the book of Revelation about the pouring of wrath and judgment in the vials and the bowls, right? Which is the pouring of wrath and judgment on the seed. It's always been a battle of seed. It's always been a battle of seed from the very beginning. Genesis 3:15, after the terrible fall, man loses its eternal life. Man loses his reign over the planet. And the reign of the planet is given to the fallen angels, not the fallen angel and his legions, right? That are still wreaking havoc in the deep state, in the lawlessness, in the Luciferian pedophiles, in the murderers, and all the horrors in our otherwise beautiful paradise. So the redeeming of the seed, I'll give you that scripture again, Genesis 3:15, and I will put enmity or division between thy seed. He had to put division between the two seeds, because if he hadn't put division, Lucifer, the fallen angel, would have merged his seed, as he's been playing with from time immemorial, and now with vaccines and other things, to monkey with the seed and to block because our very consciousness, soul, mind, and heart are a function of our genetics and our seed and our biology. Hence, if we didn't need them, we wouldn't have a brain that'd be stored in the cloud. But you do need a brain, and your memories and identity are a function of that. And if Lucifer, Satan, can block that with seed, then he would, because we're in a war in heaven. That's the title of the series, right? So, the seed. I will put enmity, division between thy seed and her seed. Thou will bruise his head, and he will bruise thy heel. Thou will bruise his heel. He shall bruise thy head. Excuse me. The coming seed, the Messiah, will bruise the head, destroy the dominion, while the heel, the body will be crucified. You will bruise his heel. He will bruise your head. And so this battle for seed is what it's been all about. And that's what's happening here in this prophetic time period. It's the final judgment, for lack of a better word, rendering of justice, making things right again. Do you understand? Rendering of justice, making things right again. And that's what the mystery, even though we've been taught, and it's a little distasteful, almost nauseating sometimes, the way the adversary has taken religion and poisoned the wells of truth, counterfeiting it, turning the name of Jesus into Jesus, and when it's Yeshua HaMashiach, turning the name of Yahuwah into God, which is actually the name of Gadriel, which is a pagan god, So it would call, but people worship to the best of their understanding, and God recognizes the people's hearts. So you're not. But when you know better than to call God God, and you ought to at least call him Yahuwah some of the time, and Jesus' real name, that's his Roman name. Jesus, Yeshua HaMashiach is his Aramaic name. So nonetheless, I don't want to get off on that. It's not about legalism. It's about the quest of your heart, right? So getting back to this is the midpoint here. So what's happening in this is it's pointing us to the midpoint. What do we have here? We have a conjunction. Conjunction. When you have a conjunction of two major wandering stars, two planets such as Saturn and Saturn and Venus. Venus is the bright and morning star. Saturn is Satan or Hashatan. There's the clash. It really heats up in the midpoint. If you know the prophecy, the first 3.5 years are relatively mild compared to the final second 3.5 years. That's when the Antichrist sets himself up in the temple, and the persecution to the death and the beheadings, the mortality is forced upon the faithful remnant that are left behind, that are on the earth. Many people believe that this is that the rapture has happened before that. I tend to ascribe to that too. There's too many instances of prophetic rescues in the archetypes of the Old Testament archetypes, which are there and written for our learning. You have Moses and a story of crossing the Jordan, and you have Noah, just two great ones. There's so many of them. They're all about rescuing out, delivering, feeding the manna in the wilderness, etc., hiding, etc. And then there's the direct prophecies that talk about the escape and the rapture and the snatching away, and we're not appointed to wrath. Okay, many things like that. So if you want to build up your believing and understanding in the principle of a snatching, rapture, escape, you'll have to study another set of teachings for that. I won't go into that. But here we have on this midpoint day on our chart, we have this March 22nd of 2024, the midpoint, right here, March 22nd, 24. We have this image, Saturn and Venus in the stream. The clash really starts, the war heats up. So it's ancient nomenclature is about wrath and judgment being poured out in the vials per the book of Revelation. So all the Aquarius and its deacon constellations are about the wrath, the tribulation, the vial, the cup of wrath. Mars is also right there. Mars is about war. Mars is about Michael the Archangel. Mars represents Michael the Archangel in ancient biblical astronomy. I'm not just talking, a couple of 100 years of lore. I'm talking thousands of years of biblical astronomy, not astrology. And then again, so this is the beauty of this prophetic sign on that day that lends a tremendous signature point. And then again, so you count forward then 1,260 days, and where are you at? You're at the Feast of Trumpets. So we begin on Pentecost, May 18th to 21, a high watch, high festival day, and we end on another fall high watch festival day of the Feast of Trumpets. September 3rd that year is Feast of Trumpets. So not only does that 2,520 days match, the 2,300 days also matches to end on there, and to begin on, as I mentioned, it begins on Pentecost, right? So we have Shemini Atzeret, Pentecost, Feast of Trumpets. Pretty amazing. And then to add to that, we have a 1335-day prophecy that could begin on the new moon Pentecost watch. We've been in people want to put things in a cookie cutter and say, look, you got everything within 7 years. No, you can't. Because the Revelation 12 sign, I mean, maybe we'll look back and go, yeah, the Revelation 12 sign was within the 7-year count, and that we're actually 3 years into the 7-year. I don't think we are, but it's a possibility. But if the Revelation 12 sign is outside of the 7 years, which most people now believe it clearly is, yet it's still recorded in the book of Revelation, right? John saw that. He recorded in Revelation 12, 1 and 2, right? So hence this 1335, to put that outside of the 7 years of this 7-year golden window here is not that big of a stretch. It starts on a very nice high watch day, starts an 84-day time period, ends on Shemini Atzeret, another 84-day time period, the end of the 84-day time period. And to really believe in that, the meaning of the 84-day, you really have to have been almost obsessed with the 84-day event that happened back in 2017. That was a life changer for the intellectually honest and fervently seeking seekers, sojourners, saints, right? Because it was undeniable. It was the crown of 12 stars. It was the conception comet. I'll put the link to all those things at the bottom of this. And if it doesn't show up in this, it'll show up on my Facebook page, because it'll be there. And I've got all those on my Facebook page already too. But nonetheless, so that 1335 counts forward to what? It counts forward to something. Well, it counts forward to what? It's a date. It's actually Nisan. Normally, the Roman and the Gregorian and the Hebrew calendar don't match up, but that year, Nisan 6 and March 6 in 2024, a little over 3.5 years out, is the day. It's a special day. And then, ironically, before I go into that, and then you count forward 1,290 days, you count forward to Shemini Atzeret on another high watch, 5 festival day, fall festival. At the end, it's a little bit beyond this end here, the end of these 7 years from the 24th to the 3rd. So it's 3 weeks. But you add the extra days over here and you get 1,290 days, since the 1,260 there and the 1,290 here is a little longer this way and it's a little longer that way. It comes out perfectly to Shemini Atzeret. And it also gives you 2,550 days, which is another prophetic day that takes you back to, there's a prophetic Daniel prophecy of the 2,550 days to the end from what we just went through, which has started something here on October the 2nd. Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles. So it started that just as this 1335 was started back on, and the 84 days were both started back on Pentecost. Crossing the Jupiter-Venus conjunction, Jupiter-Regulus conjunction on, again, Feast of Tabernacles, and leading up to where we're going now. But this 1335 comes over to this magic day, and that day marks the midpoint of these two time counts. And these two are the couple of more difficult ones to work with in my believing. I mean, first of all, we're not going to know any of this is true until it happens. And we're just watchers. We're not calling days. We're seeing how, and when we can rarely can we lay out. I mean, I've never seen all of them laid out with this many perfect symmetries, landing on high watch days, landing on festival days, with astronomical markers with them. This astronomical marker and this astronomical marker, which I showed you. I'm sure there are probably others in here as well, but those are really profound ones. I didn't find any others. But this day, what is this day? Well, it's a little bit obscure like this one was here. This one here, I told you it was 7 years, 2,520 days from this point back to Sukkot, which was October the 2nd. I always kind of thought Sukkot didn't have enough lining up. It could have been a watch day, a high watch day, a rapture day. But I saw this one more profoundly here. But this does come up with 7 years to the temple wall being established. Well, it could have been landed on any day, but no, it lands on exactly day that God, for some reason, decided to record that day, the 25th of Elul. For some reason, maybe that's the reason. Everything has a reason. God's word has a purpose for everything it says, when it says it, where it says it, why it says it, how it says it, and to whom it says it. And so there was a reason this date was recorded, the 25th of Elul, and it ends up being 7 years from Sukkot of October the 2nd of this year. Amazing. So there's a lot of things that happen in prophecy in the book of Revelation, many things we can't even go into, right? There's a lot of things that happen. But, we have dates here, like this little date here, which is Pentecost. And we certainly have this date here, which we know what happens there, that's spoken of. We have this date right here, which is a few days before. This is March 22nd, and this is March the 6th of 2024. And that day in history was the day when the Messiah's very first recorded miracle was at a wedding, when he turned water into wine. So, there are so many, and I'll put a link to those, but if you've been a student of this, there's been a lot of eschatology and prophecy about weddings, the marriage of the bride, the body of Christ. And I know the bride can be referred also to as both an individual as well as the Jewish body, the Jewish corporate, the Jewish peoples, the Jewish believers. But the bride has references, has words where it refers to pretty clearly the followers of Mashiach. So anyway, the bride and the head and the groom, there's many gospel accounts and proverbs about the wedding, and that's when the groom comes, and you don't know when the groom will come, and so you have to be ready. So this is a beautiful midpoint here, that this first miracle, when it's incumbent upon us humans to seek and then to discover the truth. Because if you don't care about truth, you're not going to find it. And if you don't care about truth, you're not worth much. You're just going through consuming, feeding yourself, and dying, like normies do, right? And God's rich in His mercy and grace, and it's just He's all love. But that's not the highest manifestation of your highest and greatest self, right? You're supposed to keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the treasures of life. Where your treasures are, there's where your heart is. And you're supposed to, the first and greatest commandment is to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. How do you love yourself? Might be by doing those things, by seeking the truth and loving out of just sheer awe of the fact that you have 10,000 miracles a second that we've been programmed to ignore. Yet, praise Yeshua HaMashiach, praise Yahuwah, that we can wake up and we can quest. And with that questing, get answers, because answers are only servants to questions. If you don't have any questions, answers are just nothing. You might as well memorize mathematical formulas. So you have to have the questions to have meaningful answers. So do what it takes to have a question. Be honest and seek. Be honest about the miracles that your heart beats without you even trying. You breathe without even trying. You cognate. You have cognition. You don't even have to do anything. And yet you came from nothing and you're going back to nothing. And you're going to ignore that? Yes, I know that's what humanity has been taught to do for thousands of years. But you can wake up. So when you take that hunger and those questions and you start piecing together your own answers, nobody's dogma, nobody's religion, nobody's poisoned wells of spelling words, word spells that have been poisoned so that you can't find the answers in the heavens, the answers in the leather trails that have been left for us to find, written down for thousands of years with the greatest precision that man can have, written by divine inspiration. That's the claim. You can come to believe that because the precision of the scriptures are magnificent, just as it says he magnified his word above his name, not the stars. The precision of the words, the symmetry, the resonance, the power of the true spoken words, of the resonance, Yeshua HaMashiach, as opposed to Jesus, as to Yahuwah, as opposed to God this, God that. Now take not the Lord's name in vain. But we say these things and they don't mean much. God bless us all. We all have been alienated and enemies in our minds by wicked works, right? Yet we've all been rescued. We have the chance to be delivered from that. It's not a matter of judgment and condemnation. It's about deliverance and redemption and rescue. And now hopefully escape, snatching, rapture. Because this battle for seed, this war in heaven, is sooner or later, and maybe it's now, maybe it's 3.5 years, maybe it's 7 years, maybe it's 14 years, whenever it happens, the prophecies must be fulfilled. They say peace and safety, right? Sooner or later, the evil, whether it's the Great Awakening, Trump can do it, or someone else, more power to him. Even on a small scale, they're not going to raise anybody from the dead. They're not going to solve. But there is an evil. There is a war in heaven, and we're seeing the war in heaven as viewed from on earth. So this 1335 days lands on this beautiful, and I don't know what'll happen on that day, if even this is going to stand. But once again, I've never seen a set of, and if you look back before this away, which is on an earlier graph, and you go back and look how this counts up to this, there's 888 days, an 888 day count. There's several other counts that lead us right up from the 84-day count of the Revelation 12 sign to this final 84-day count landing right here on 10/10/2020. 10/10/2020. That's a nice number, isn't it? Well, that's Shemini Atzeret 2020. the last great day of the last great feast, the last trumpet on the last great day of the last feast of this year. May something happen. May I be lucky enough, and you be count us, what's the word? Count it fortunate to escape. Count ourselves worthy. May I be counted found worthy. I think sometimes if they were going to prosecute me for being a Christian or believer, right? You know, the little saying, they may not have enough evidence to convict me, or that maybe I'm in the Christian Secret Service, right? But I say, I hope that we're all found worthy, like it says. Maybe the word in this is just simple, Romans 10:9 and 10 one time. I hope it is. And some people say that there's an escape and then that there's a rapture. I've always been a one event guy, but there's plausible ideas that you could have an escape here and a rapture here. That's pretty well the other. Of course, and then the tribulation stage, the Nazarene, would start here because God, His mercy endures forever. There will still be tribulation saints, the quote 144,000 that go from here forward, and then they are persecuted to the death in that 3.5 year time period. But anyway, this is the best that I understand it, and I hope you find it useful. I'm going to get off here now. And because I'll leave some links under there. And let me see if I missed anything. Well, not much. Just that at the end of this, people say, well, it's the end of the world. Are you talking about the end of the world? No, that's lies and spells from the adversary to poison the well so people don't search. Because it loses credibility. You know, end of the world, the end is near. No, it's not the end. Let me go back and look at this. Let me show you. The end is, after this, you know what happens? It's 1,000 years. It's 1,000 years here with the Messiah and the believers reigning from Jerusalem on earth for 1,000 years. Well, how is that? Where's the end of the world? There's a really bad judgment that happens in here. You know, there's a war that's going on. Some of the stuff appears to be straight from the pit of hell, the adversary and his cohorts being let loose. And then there's also things that appear to be of divine origin that which we'll not go into. Because the war for man's seed has got to be over. Because if the adversary can just kill everybody, which he's been 100% successful so far, except for one person, you know, the one that rose. Everybody else is dead. What part of dead do you not understand? You believe, are you still uncertain whether or not dead or alive, or if you were planted here by aliens? Tisk tisk. You're going to have to think that through some. You need to be pretty confident. But the 1,000 years is a long time. And then comes the end. Then this earth and all that is in it burn up. I don't know for what reason. Is it a supernova of the sun, or is it just God says we're going to build a new one? That's for 1,000 years and 1,007 years at least, right? Seems to be. 1,007, 1,014, whatever it is, 1,020. But again, this symmetry, I don't think I'll ever find a 7-year or a set of dates that are as strong as the 1335, the 1290, the 1260s, the 2550, ending on Shmini Atzeret, which is the last day and then starting the millennial reign, landing on a couple of obscure dates on the finishing of the temple wall, are the first miracle of the Messiah at a wedding, where it's incumbent upon people to accept by the works. His miracles were given to build believing. Miracles aren't just for show, for magic. It's when a miracle is done, it's to give you a chance. But you say, oh, if I just had a miracle, if he's real, come down and show me. You know, you're not even looking at the miracles you already got. That's why you don't get that one. You're already given 10,000 miracles every second. You can't even see those? It's about waking up. So you have this obscure date here, and that's why sometimes he spoke in parables. Because how much more wicked would man be than he already is wicked? You're already unable to ascertain the fact that you're not walking in complete awe, or the fact that you're even existing. So one of the famous prophets says, the sign of true enlightenment is the ability to stay in a constant state of awe. Well, the ultimate state of awe is the one that God designed, which is where you know that you're a walking miracle from the creator of the heavens and the earth. And that your heart should respond to that call every second. And the way you respond to him, first and foremost, the way you love yourself, and the way you love your other fellow lost human beings, right? That are also fighting a great battle. So that first miracle that Jesus did at Cana on, what was it, the 6th of Nisan that year, going into a couple of weeks before that year's Passover, at a wedding, was just only God could do that. And so there is a wedding that's being called for right now. The total tapestry of this timeline starts with the great wedding. Well, I don't know if it starts with it, but it's certainly major punctuated with it. Maybe a couple of them. Anyway, that's all I have. I hope that clears up this graph. And much aloha, much love. Hope to see you in the sky. Thanks for watching.